Hello again. I'm John Sargent, back with another chat for Saga's Not Going Out Club. Before the pandemic, I heard young people explain that they had to make a conscious effort to do interesting things and go to special places, bucket lists and so on. Otherwise, they believed, their lives would simply not be eventful enough. They had to lay down memories. You only pass this way once. I shouldn't think so many of them think that way now. This worldwide crisis will have provided millions of searing memories, good, bad, and sometimes, let's admit it, ridiculous. There will be those who are determined to forget about the whole business and look to the future. These are the words of the poet Longfellow, quoted by Churchill in 1941 when he no longer doubted eventual victory. And not by eastern windows only, when daylight comes in the light. In front the sun climbs slow, how slowly. But westward, look, the land is bright. There's a lot to be said for that approach. Hope springs eternal. Maybe it's the journalist in me, but throughout my eventful career, I've always wanted to hold on to my experiences, to make an effort to remember. My stepfather was an Oxford academic, C. Stevens, known as Tom, who had an exceptional memory. He taught me some tricks. Don't visit an art gallery and expect to remember lots of paintings. Make a short list of 3 and pick out their memorable features. When I was 20 and studying politics, I made my first visit to the House of Commons, accompanied by an American student. Just after we'd settled in the public gallery, he leapt up and pointed down at a familiar figure sitting alone at the end of a bench. "Oh my God," he shouted, "it's Winston Churchill." One of the attendants gestured at him to sit down quietly. I stared transfixed at the great man. There were only a few other MPs present. After a while, he stood up and all eyes swiveled towards him. He very slowly and precariously minced his way out of the chamber. Like everyone else, I said to myself, please don't fall over. It was one of his last public appearances. 6 months later, he died. I had to commit to memory the salient features of the moment, lodging it firmly in some deep recess. Like all important memories, it has to be taken out quite often and re-remembered to keep it fresh. Prompted by the splendid programmes inspired by VE Day 75 years ago, I've been dusting down my recollections of events to mark the anniversaries of famous battles. In 1990, in Margaret Thatcher's difficult last year in office, she gained a brief respite on a visit to the Dardanelles in Turkey, where 75 years earlier, Britain and its allies mounted their disastrous assault. I interviewed the Prime Minister on the plane and found her genuinely happy. She was escaping current problems by reading letters sent home by participants in that terrible conflict. I stood with the Defence Secretary Tom King on the beach itself as he pointed to a small number of Royal Navy warships sent specially for the occasion. "We won't have any like those for much longer," he said gloomily and memorably. In 1992, I went to Egypt in a press party with John Major to El Alamein for the 50th anniversary of that victory. Apart from my excitement at being able to end my radio dispatch with the words "John Sargent, BBC, El Alamein," I chiefly remember being left behind at the airport in Cairo when Mr. Major decided to leave early. I ran along the runway, waving helplessly at his departing plane. In order to catch up, I spent 4 hours crossing the desert in a car. How then did I celebrate VE Day? I mentioned earlier the chance of ridiculous memories of the lockdown, and this one, I admit, I deliberately organised. For the first time since I married Mary 51 years ago, I made her a cake, and put it out on a tray with a teapot and matching cups and saucers. At 4 p.m. on the 8th of May, having listened to Mr. Churchill's address to the nation, we had our own tea party. But this was no ordinary cake. It was a Swiss roll made according to the recipe used by his chef, Georgina Landmeer. It was one of his favourites, and I have to say it was delicious. Churchill once compared a good speech with a pudding. They both need a strong theme. Mine was really good strawberry jam. Like those young people I referred to at the beginning, I think it is important to make sure you have some stories to tell. Until we meet again, cheerio.